Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's good to see everyone here today. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Isaacs. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Portland Business Alliance. Welcome to our East Multnomah County Small Business Roundtable this morning. We are here today because we wanted to take the opportunity to connect our members in East County. We have hundreds of members with a group of elected officials who represent you and who we work with on a regular basis. Many of you who are joining us today are brand new members, and this is a great opportunity for you to get involved with the Alliance in our role as a connector between our members and your elected officials. We hope today is just the start of many more conversations you and your business are able to engage in with us here at the Portland Business Alliance. So thank you for making the time to join us. I'd like to introduce our executive board member and chair of our Small Business Council, Diane Economaki, CEO of Fuse 7 Marketing. Diane, take it away.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be in your company today and to meet everyone. We're so excited to have this event today scheduled. And as John mentioned, I own a digital marketing company here in Southwest Portland off Macadam Avenue, named Fuse 7 Marketing. I'm also the chair of the Portland Business Alliance Small Council, as John had mentioned. This council is very important to me. It serves as a forum for our small business members across the region. We hear from and engage with public officials and policymakers on the latest issues facing small businesses in our region, and that's really the purpose of this council. The work done in this group helps inform the Portland Business Alliance's policy agenda that is driven by its members. The Small Business Council is also open to all Alliance members, and we're always looking for input and welcoming new members to join the conversation. We meet once a month via Zoom. If you're interested, or anyone in your teams or you have colleagues that are interested in joining any of our future calls, please leave a comment in the Zoom chat room so that we can make sure we get these names up on our list, and a staff member will help them join our next call. We really look forward to that. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we look forward to our discussion. And now I'd like to start off today's roundtable discussion. I'd like to welcome the Multnomah County Commissioner, Ms. Lori Stegman. Welcome, Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Diane. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Stegman, and I'm the Multnomah County Commissioner representing District 4. My district begins at about Southeast 148th in Portland and extends all the way to the Hood River County line. It also includes the cities of Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale, Wood Village, and the unincorporated areas all the way up to the Bonneville Dam, as well as the beautiful Multnomah Falls and a portion of the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. So I'm so happy to be here, and I know my colleagues and I all appreciate the opportunity to hear from folks today. We want to make sure that we connect with the business community, community organizations, and residents as we make decisions about funding and services. Thank you, John and Diane and the PBA for inviting me to co-host this roundtable with you. Many of these folks on the call here today, I have the opportunity to work with in local and state government already. So this year has been really difficult for all of us. Our communities, our businesses are struggling to find stability as we weather the pandemic. And as your local safety net service provider, Multnomah County also serves as a local public health authority. And we're responsible for setting up testing and vaccine sites for our most vulnerable residents. Recently, we just began our deliberations on our largest budget to date, nearly $3 billion, that will prioritize the greatest needs for health and human services across our county. I've been so appreciative of how private and public sectors have joined together to respond to the pandemic. We've seen our partners step up as they established housing options, provided food pantries, navigated restrictions as we experience waves of COVID cases. We've even seen businesses volunteer to host vaccine sites. And while I know we have a long way to go, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So today I wanted to touch on a few of the policies and programs that I've been working on. At the very beginning of the pandemic, I convened the East County Visitor Development Fund Committee to respond to emerging needs as hotels were being shuttered across the county. we were able to distribute over $300,000 to local East County hotels to help them with their payroll and other business expenses so that they could keep their operations running. And while I know this is a drop in the bucket, I've heard from many of those hoteliers who were incredibly grateful for that lifeline. This past December, Multnomah County utilized $7 million in CARES funding to provide grants to restaurants and food carts. And I worked with our local partners to get the word out to East County businesses and was able to carve out $1 million in funding for small grants that were specifically dedicated to East County businesses. Partnering with the PBA and East County cities, we were able to provide those grant funds to support 420 businesses, half of which were BIPOC and women owned. So it was a team effort to get those grants out efficiently and quickly. And I want to thank our local cities and our community-based economic partners like the PBA, the Gresham Chamber, and many others for helping us get the word out. Just yesterday, our board approved an agreement with the East County cities to restructure the shared rate of something called our business income tax, BIT. And I want to thank my colleague, Commissioner Vega Peterson, for her support in making this happen. This was a critical vote, and we both understand how important this source of revenue is for the cities of Gresham, Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview. The next step in this work is to get accurate data that will help quantify the contributions of East County businesses so that we can have a clearer picture of growth to reassess the formula for the shared rate of the BIT. Our conversation today covers challenges and opportunities facing East County presently and in the future. Commissioner Vega Peterson and I have been working hard to articulate the needs of the entire county, from interrupting cycles of violence, reducing impacts of poverty, increasing early childhood education and workforce development opportunities, and even a new flagship library that's slated to be built here to equalize the offerings of our library system. It's important that we share the need in East County locally, regionally, and even nationally. Our board recently signed onto a letter to Governor Brown expressing the hardships facing our small business community and advocating in favor of a $20 million small business emergency relief package. I'm pleased to announce that the message was received, and just this morning, Governor Brown announced $20 million in business assistance funds will be sent to local counties. For Multnomah County, that is just over $5 million, and I will continue to advocate for an equity lens to be placed on the disbursement of those funds. Through the National Association of Counties, I've been honored to be part of a national cohort representing 20 jurisdictions across the country. And we were gathered together to address long-term economic mobility and stability. And because of that relationship, we just learned that Multnomah County will receive a $100,000 grant from the Gates Foundation to build our economic mobility infrastructure here in East County. I'm excited to share updates with you as this work proceeds. And finally, today, I'm thrilled to announce that our East County Visitor Development Fund Committee has been in discussion about creating a second round of restaurant business grants. Once we have final approval from the larger Visitor Development Fund Committee, we hope to solicit applications for businesses to apply for one of 25 $1,000 grants that will be available to increase capacity in their outdoor dining, their to-go capacity, and other changes needed to continue their operations that are within the guidelines set out by the state of Oregon. I'll be working with John and the PBA to get final details out to you as the application process opens. My hope is that this is a starting point for a larger program that will align with state and federal funds yet to come.
Thank you, Commissioner. Wonderful leadership and service, and you've really made a mark. Also joining us today for a roundtable discussion are the Multnomah County Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson, State Representative Jeff Reardon, and Gresham Mayor Travis Stovall. Welcome, all of you. Let's take a moment for each of you to introduce yourselves a little more and tell us about your priorities for East Multnomah County businesses and the communities we work in. Commissioner Vega Peterson, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you, Commissioner Stegman, for that wonderful intro, and congratulations on all the work that you've done for East County. I'm Jessica Vega Peterson. I'm the Multnomah County Commissioner for District 3, And my district really represents much of Southeast and East Portland. The boundary of my district starts on the west at Cesar Chavez, but then it goes all the way east to 148th. And it starts at the northern boundary is I-84, and then it goes all the way south to the county line. Prior to being a Multnomah County Commissioner, I also served in the state legislature for 4 years. And I myself live in the east side of my district, so I'm very close, actually really close to the David Douglas football field, for those of you who know who that is. One of my top priorities as a county commissioner is really expanding economic opportunity for working families. Prior to my service as an elected official, I spent 14 years working in the technology industry, from everything from small businesses and startups to bigger companies like Microsoft. My husband is also a small business owner that was, much like many of your businesses, also impacted by what has happened in the past year because of COVID. I know that there is so much potential within our communities and within our small businesses, and we need to make sure that we're providing the resources to the small businesses that they need to thrive and flourish, and that we need to empower those who've been historically lacked access to educational and the capital resources that they need. We've seen and felt the impact that COVID-19 has had, both the restrictions on businesses because of COVID-19, as well as the recession that's followed and how that's impacted some of our small businesses so deeply. As businesses have grappled with these unprecedented shutdowns, they've really had to innovate in order to stay afloat. And this is something that I've seen, throughout my district and with businesses as they've pivoted to take on new ways of serving their customers, of staying open. And we really need to make sure that they have the resources in order to continue to do that. We really need to make sure that we're supporting the essential workers at every level that have kept our society functioning. We know that the Paycheck Protection Program and other federal and state programs were successful in supporting many small businesses. Too many of those face barriers in accessing those resources. And so as we emerge from the pandemic and as we look towards building a stronger and more equitable economy, we need to continue to empower our small businesses and support working families. I'm a huge fan of the work that's done by Prosper Porton with the neighborhood prosperity initiatives that they have. They have very successful programs in my district out here in East Portland, including the J District, the Division Midway Alliance, and the Rosewood Project. And each of those has helped serve small businesses within my district by reaching out and providing the support that they need, oftentimes in the languages that they need or in other things that make it more accessible to them, that have helped them stay afloat by getting those critical resources. We need to continue making it easier for those businesses to access those resources. And we need to make sure that we are supporting working families with the resources they need, including childcare, which has been such a critical need during this pandemic, paid sick and family leave, and a living wage. Thank you so much.
Representative Jeff Reardon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, certainly, and good morning, everybody. It really is good to be here. It's difficult following such stellar commissioners, but it's so good to hear about all the work they're doing, and it's just amazing how hard they work and what good jobs they do for all of us. Anyway, I'm representative for House District 48, which is Lents and Happy Valley area. And I live out by Leeds Botanical Gardens, which if you haven't been there lately, you really should visit. They've just opened a new phase 1 and they have an aerial walkway, and that's my shameless plug for my part of town. But I'm co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee for Natural Resources, and I'm also on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. I'm on the Water Committee and on the Committee for Education. So this month, and actually the last couple of months, we've been working really hard on ways to allocate the $2.6 billion that the state of Oregon will receive through the American Rescue Plan Act. And Ways and Means co-chairs framework says that half of those funds, the $1.3 billion, is going to support current service levels. So that's just keeping the budget level. And we want to prevent major cuts statewide. We're going to try to carry over the current plan is try to carry over about $5.25 million into the next biennium to kind of stabilize things. We're very conservative on our budgets. And that's been a blessing this time. We were conservative in the 2019 budgeting process, and it's really paid off because it's helped us manage through, this storm that none of us really saw coming. We will have about 780 million of the ARPA funds to distribute in some way into projects. So there have been lots of ideas. So we're working through that. One of the ways is that there's 240. So I've given you a lot of numbers here. So of the 780 that I see as something that will be invested now, looking for projects, 240 of that's been allocated for your local state representatives and senators. So each representative will get $2 million to invest in projects, and each senator gets 4 million. So, and those decisions have to be made within the next week or so. So we're working on that. That has gotten a lot of attention. Our investments that we are doing are going to target the hardest hit workers, the unemployed, the underemployed, have support for our community, small businesses. You heard some of that this morning already, BIPOC owned and operated establishments. Anything we can do to promote that community of resilience to help come back, especially after the Wildfire Recovery Committee. They're working hard to developing a number of investments as well for all of those communities that have been just ravaged by last fall's wildfires. And one of the ways that I stay informed about the needs for small businesses is I do have a son-in-law that has a couple of bars up in Northwest Portland. So, all of the challenges that he faced has really kind of calibrated my thinking. That and talking to local business owners in the Lentz area. We have a woman-owned bakery there that she's had to flip her business around, turn around her model, and get that back on its feet. So really spend more than I should down there, but it's just really informative to have those direct contacts with people that are facing these issues. I was appointed to the Workforce Talent Development Board earlier this session, so I'm working with them, and they're developing strategies for how do we recover, how do we have an equitable recovery from this, from the pandemic, from the wildfires, from everything we've been going through. This work starts with our community college system. Community colleges are the hearts of our communities, and right now we're I've got a community college caucus trying to get adequate funding just to maintain the programs we have for the community colleges. And for some reason, the governor likes to come in with a low figure on that, and then we have to go gather support and fight for the funding that they should be receiving. So that's been a real challenge. We're trying to get that up to 702 million. And one program, I know Lori would be particularly disappointed if I didn't mention Prosperity 2000. It's House Bill 2820. And what that does is try to provide additional supports for people that are in the workforce training system. So we started with 1,000 people, we're going to try for funding for 2,000. And this is a problem that's existed forever. Where they're in these programs, but they may need transportation, they may need daycare, all of these things that keep them from being successful in their training program. So trying to get funding for that. PBA has signed on as a supporter and been very active in those conversations and helping me with that. So greatly appreciated. Lori in particular, or Commissioner Stegman, I should say, has been there for years trying to get this program going. Feeling pretty good about it right now, but we'll see. Also, the one other bill I wanted to mention is House Bill 2819. I'm working on to expand the earned income tax credit, and that's just a great bipartisan program that helps get tax dollars to the people that need it the most. So if you're a small, a young family, a couple of kids, trying to keep the tax credits going for them, and actually expanding that eligibility a little bit.
Now we want to introduce our Gresham Mayor, Travis Stovall. If you could introduce yourself briefly, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Diane. Great appreciated. And it is such a pleasure to be here this morning with this group and also with these panelists. I've gotten the opportunity to work some directly and somewhat indirectly with each of these, and very proud to call these individuals folks that represent our communities here on the East Side in the great work that they do. So I'm Travis Stovall. I actually just became mayor of Gresham this year. So I took office January 5th. And so I've had a whole 4 months to jump in and start working on many different issues. And as you can imagine, much of our attention has been focused on the response to the pandemic and the businesses and the challenges that have existed there. And I'm extremely proud of what our city has been able to accomplish during the time that we first encountered the pandemic back in 2020. You know, we implemented the Gresham, I say we, I wasn't at the city yet, but Gresham implemented the Gresham Cares program, going out and delivering food and medicines and various things to our community members. We did the emergency small business grants. We did 2 rounds of those based on additional funding that we had in the, that we've received from the state, and some of the funding that we actually had within the city. We also helped coordinate and facilitate the Paycheck Protection Program that's already been referenced once, but we help businesses kind of coordinate some of that, and the economic injury disaster loans that were delivered by the SBA. The city has been very effective at helping businesses get connected there. So as you can imagine, much of our focus has been around business, and when we say business, it's really about the underlying jobs and the support that these businesses need to keep those individuals employed so that they have the ability and opportunity to provide for their families. You know, and the incredible thing here, especially in Gresham, but I would say, you know, the other East County cities, we have a high dependence on small to medium-sized businesses. And so some of what we've seen with the shutdown, with the pandemic, has had a significant impact on our community and our jobs and our economy because of that dependence. And so it requires us to have a pretty strong response to what has happened and the shutdowns that we're experiencing and the limitations for our businesses. Again, it's really about the jobs, the service-based industry jobs. You heard a little bit about this from the city of Vancouver. We actually reached out to them to see some of the innovative things they were doing with the outdoor dining programs. And so we're actually getting ready to do some additional pilots to allow our restaurants to actually work with our streets and our sidewalks on a limited basis to provide for that social distancing and outside. So those are the things that we're doing, and we'll be doing many more to help our businesses respond, to keep our great community members employed and providing for their families. From a short, medium to long-term perspective, that's the short term. In the medium term, we got to look at recovery. So we'll be doing the things that we need to do to help our businesses recover. Longer term, it's really about investments that help support our businesses so that they can employ our great folks. And Representative Reardon mentioned education. It's a foundation of things that we need to take a look at. And since the city doesn't really have a direct impact on education, or in sense, a direct type of influence or control over education that's not under our purview, we do need to be thinking about what do we need to do as a city, as a community, to ensure that our educational school districts have the ability to recruit great team members. Yeah, you know, and that's partly our responsibility to ensure that we've got communities that draw those people and get them to stay and remain and live, work, and play in our community. And so those are the types of things we need to do. We're also continuing to look at strategic investment zones. We're looking at the enterprise zones. We've got the opportunity zones. We've also got the Rockwood urban, redevelopment plan going on. So those types of things allows us to recruit and sustain those businesses. We'll continue to be committed to those things, but we're also ensuring, as many organizations, municipalities are, and rightly so, we're also looking at from an equity standpoint. And I always say economic development in and of itself isn't bad, especially if we have an equitable distribution of opportunity. I am the position of mayor in Gresham is considered part-time. We put quotes around it because we all know that with that notion, there's also a lot of work that goes along with it. And so actually my night job is I still run a company. It's a majority owned technology company, which is a unicorn in and of itself. So I know the nuances of what it takes to run a small company, to employ folks, and I know the challenges that exist there. And like I said, historically, the opportunities for folks, from the BIPOC community, Black and brown individuals, women to start and grow companies has been limited just because of the distribution of resources. So as a community, we're taking a hard look at that. If you've watched any of our recent council meetings, there's a big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is inclusive of what we need to do in regards to ensuring that everybody has equitable opportunity when it comes to economic development and starting and growing companies. So those are some key things that we're focused on, some key initiatives that we're working on. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to this incredible group and share the panel with these great leaders that I get an opportunity to be shoulder to shoulder with this morning.
What do you consider to be the biggest challenge facing East County businesses, and specifically your business today, that you would like us as the Portland Business Alliance and our panelists here to know about?
I'll hop in. I'm
Okay.
a small business owner. Many of you may or may not know, but I've actually owned a business in the Rockwood neighborhood for over 25 years. And, clearly, I'm so pleased to be working alongside all of my colleagues and the PBA, because I know that you all recognize the challenges that are BIPOC and women-owned businesses. I mean, when we look at the stats, we know that those businesses and business owners have been hit the hardest. And often we don't have, we're systems and organizations and government, as you all know, we tend to make people come to us and make them jump through a lot of hoops. And so I think just by reducing as many barriers, and I think working with the PBA when we got that $1 million out to East County businesses, and I see, did I see Jessica on the line? Yeah, Jessica, show your lovely face. Jessica was amazing. And she was a consultant that really ran that entire program. And I don't know, Jessica, you might, maybe I could ask you to talk a little bit about how we were focused and what we were focused on, and how it, time was of the essence, and just, maybe some thoughts about that whole process.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman, and thank you again for the opportunity. We just sent all of the documents off to the state and officially wrapped the project up. As you mentioned earlier, we distributed roughly 420 grants to small businesses in East Multnomah County. I can't thank Mayor Stovall and the other mayors as well, Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale, because this really was a team effort to do this rapid response grant program. We had over 1,000 applications, and as you mentioned, 420 grants were distributed of $2,500 each. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is just a lack of access to translation services that many of the small business owners had. A lot of the confusion about some of the, our intent, I think, was a big thing. People were very happy to get the grant, but there was still, kind of this feeling of, many of these people that we worked with had never received funding before from anything like this. And so I think there was this, there's definitely a barrier in letting the businesses know that the community is there for them and that these resources exist. And so there was, I think there was just this incredible graciousness, but also kind of this, well, I've never had to ask for money before. I feel very humbled by this. Is there a catch? I mean, I received that a lot. And I think just knowing that not all of the businesses are multi-generational, many of them are not connected at all to their local municipalities in any way, or even familiar with what Multnomah County does. So I think there's just a huge opportunity to really connect with these small businesses and give them a greater understanding that just as much as anyone else, they can use the county and their local officials to advocate for them and be there for them. And it shouldn't just be in times of crisis. It should be an ongoing partnership. And I think from here, my hope is that those businesses will continue to have a relationship. We can check on them. We can make sure they know that this wasn't just a one-time distribution, but it really is about how do we further engage. And there are so many stories, Commissioner Stegman, that stick with me. So many people that really are kind of the fabric of these communities, and just how do we kind of elevate their stories, and kind of how if they went away, I think we would lose a lot of the culture and diversity that makes East County so incredible to the whole region.
I really appreciate you kind of expanding about the work that was done there. Like you said, I think that we reached and touched, some of these businesses are extremely small. As you know, when we look at the COVID crisis, the pandemic especially hit generational. You have a lot of these restaurants are family owned. You have, the kids, the parents, and the grandparents that all live in the same household. And when you layer the pandemic over a family run business, it creates a whole different dynamic and challenges for folks. And I think that is especially more true when you look at our BIPOC communities. So I'm excited about, Jessica, I think you got on a little bit late, but we just saw a release from the governor's office that potentially, that $5 million has been apportioned to Multnomah County. So that was just announced, but I'm hopeful that Multnomah County will have some additional opportunities, since you all really you laid the groundwork, the infrastructure, and it's really kind of a turnkey operation. And so now that we have access to more funding, I'm excited about the potential of working together even some more.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Those are really great comments. And I would mention that, as we were administering this grant program, as Jessica said, the vast majority of these businesses were sole proprietors and a high percentage of BIPOC-owned businesses. And for those types of business owners, the political system can be completely uncomfortable to interact with, or they just don't know. 2 years ago, the Portland Business Alliance, we did a special report on East County and the economy of East County. And it really had three main findings. One is that in terms of the number of jobs, it's a heavyweight area of the region. There's actually just as many jobs in East County as there are in downtown Portland. However, the two other big findings were that the vast majority of people who live in Multnomah County, I think about 70%, actually have a job outside of the area. And that 70% of the jobs in East Multnomah County are people driving in. So there's tremendous transportation pressure put on both the residents of East Multnomah County and our transportation infrastructure system. And we know that there's an inequitable access to transportation options for residents of East County. And then the third finding was that there's a pay inequity really across the board, that most of the jobs in East County don't pay as well as they do in the rest of the region. So I just wanted to give each of you an opportunity to talk about things you've done or are working on that, one or two things that are really directed at those dynamics that our study found a couple of years ago. And I'll turn it over to anyone who wants to mention something that they've, in addition to what you've already done, that folks should know about.
So I'll jump in here, John. Thanks for setting that up. One of the things before I answered your question, I want to just to mention, to go back to the first question that was asked, is on last Friday, I went on the tour of the J District and visited different small businesses in that area, including a couple of restaurant owners and A1 Bird Bath, which is a business that's been on Division Street for about 20 years now. And it was such a, it was like such a great chance just to be out and talking to community members face to face again after a year of doing everything virtually. But what I heard from those business owners, or some, very similar to what I've been hearing in emails and outreach from constituents over the past year, it's just, there's been such a burden on small businesses to deal with the fluctuations in what they're allowed to do, their capacity issues, and how that's, how that affects their ability to have employers that are, or employees come online, or booking reservations for people, and then to have things change. And we just saw that change again, with this move back to extreme risk because of the number of COVID cases that are coming, and just really the struggle that they've had with that. Several of the business owners I was talking to were not native language speakers of English, and so getting resources for them was an additional challenge. That's why I was talking earlier about, NPIs like the J District were so helpful in helping to bridge that gap for them, but also the challenge that they have then for even getting their employees vaccinated. And I think that's a role that where Multnomah County can especially play an important role in helping from our public health hat to connecting businesses who may want to, figure out how to get their employees vaccinated or need additional help with that. So I want people to see us as a resource for that. But I would also, to get back to your question, having lived here in East Portland for 15 years now, I've seen the impacts of this recession and the previous recession on this community, on the businesses here, seen businesses, struggle and come and go. And I think that, one of the things that I've been working on, for several years now is transportation issues, and how do we really impact getting people safely from where they live to where they need to go. We do not have a 20-minute neighborhood here in East Portland. We don't have a place where people can walk in 20 minutes to get groceries or to get to work or to get to, even a coffee shop maybe. And that's something that, I've been putting pressure on the state, and I've partnered with Representative Reardon on getting money for East Portland investment, which I've been happy to do. But also, working with PBOT and how they, can do more to increase investment in safety with lowering speeds and putting crosswalks in, working with TriMet and trying to get more bus service here. So really, working on that transportation issue that you talked about, so that businesses have a way for their workers to get where they need to be in a I think stable way and predictable way, for them is a big thing. And then, for me, I've also done a lot of work around workers themselves and really getting family wage jobs here into East Portland. And I think that's something that we know we need more investment in. So I've always, I love when we have see businesses coming into this area or into the East County area that really do provide those family wage jobs. And one of the things that I championed last year was a preschool for all initiative to bring universal preschool here, which is great for families, and we've seen how critical childcare has been during this pandemic. But it's also a huge investment in those workers to make sure that they're getting a living wage, so that they're able to support themselves, their families, and the communities and the businesses where they live and work as well. So I think those kinds of investments are going to be paying dividends for a long time to come. And again, just want to say that we are, my office, Commissioner Stegman's office, we are resources for people who need help navigating, the work that they're doing now.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other comments from our panelists?
Are we raising our hands or just busting in here?
Just go ahead, Representative.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a question actually for the commissioners. We were happy to hear the $5 million coming to Multnomah County. And I'm just curious about how you can affect the distribution of that. Because we know that there's an East Multnomah County and there's a West side, and the poverty is all on the East side. The highest concentration of poverty in the state. So can we, will that 5 million be targeted more to our needs or across the board, do you think?
We just got word this morning, so I can guarantee you that Commissioner Vega Peterson and I will be advocating for those resources to go to the areas that have the greatest need, which is our 2 districts. So I think we'll be having some robust conversations about looking through an equity lens as we figure out how to distribute that funding. But as I had said before, the good thing is that we've already built the system. The PB, it's turnkey. So once we decide on, how those funds will be distributed, of course, we have to collaborate with Chair Kafori and our fellow commissioners, but we will be advocating hard for East County businesses to receive their fair share. And Commissioner Vega Peterson, I don't know if you have any additional comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said the crux of it is that we just found out about how much we were going to be getting this morning. And so, I've already had my office reach out to the chair's office, like we need to start talking about how this is going to be divided up. Yeah. But I will say that I think all of us recognize $5 million is not going to be enough money. So the way that we decide to spend this money, I think we really do need to continue to use the equity lens and where the greatest need is as we're making those decisions. And I agree, East Portland, East County are areas that have always been hardest hit by these things, not just from a business standpoint, but also just in terms of COVID cases themselves. So we will be advocating very strongly for investment.
Well, please let me know if I can help with that advocacy.
Thank you.
And I'll mention that just to support the comments of our commissioners here, the economic checkup report that the Alliance released this year showed clearly that there have been inequitable impacts of the pandemic on historically underserved communities, particularly communities of color, businesses, BIPOC-owned businesses, and then of course, the industries that are again impacted by the latest shutdown requirement by the governor because of rising COVID cases. So we know the business types that have been most impacted. We know the communities that are most impacted. So it's great to hear these comments from both Commissioner Stegman and Vega Peterson, because it's spot on with what the research shows. I said, Jessica, you have your hand raised. I wanted to.
Yeah, Commissioner Stegman mentioned the $100,000 grant from the Gates Foundation. And one of the things when I spoke, I feel like a relationship with all 420 applicants at this point, but one of the things that did happen is that innovation piece, where we did have food cart owners who were able to expand their offerings and were looking for support for larger kitchens, or not everybody. While there was economic hardship, some people were able to pivot that into something greater. And we've seen that a few times. And when you talk about that one grant, do you believe that any of that $5 million could go toward maybe infrastructure or expansion or something around, maybe a business hasn't had a decrease in revenue, but what they've seen during the pandemic is a need for capital support so they can grow and expand their business? And then also collaborative grants, because one of our recipients was the Gresham Food Cart Pod. So we had the Gresham Food Cart Pod, and then we had individual cards that applied for funding. And at one point I was thinking, how great would it be to encourage them to apply for a collaborative grant that maybe helped with lighting. I'm sure Mayor Stovall knows this, or maybe not, there was some vandalism to a lot of the carts in that pod recently. And so some of the people were needing funds for things like that, but maybe additional security around there. But just thinking of ways to get creative with these funds, because some people may not need the money for hiring back people, but they will want to see how can they innovate and kind of move forward in a more creative way.
Jessica, I appreciate you bringing up, there are things that as government and jurisdictions that we don't know, that you've had the opportunity to work one-on-one with these individuals and businesses. So I really appreciate that perspective. My personal opinion is yes, absolutely. Surprisingly, you're right. There are some restaurants and businesses that are moving during the pandemic, which is amazing, but probably a little bit unnerving for those businesses, especially on a day like today. So absolutely, I think helping restaurants expand because they have a lot of ground to make up. And then I love the idea about the collaborative grants. And I think we did have the opportunity to kind of quote, do double dipping. And so, yes, I would be in favor of being as creative as possible. And maybe Mayor Stovall would talk a little bit more. I was excited to hear you talk about the permitting or opening up streets for outdoor dining. I could see a partnership there, like, okay, especially since, we're going to try to get these, it's not a lot of money, but it's $25,000. $1,000 might be enough for somebody to buy tables and chairs and tents, and especially in partnership with the city of Gresham, where we have this beautiful main street. So anyway, I don't know, Mayor Stovall, if you had any other additional comments that you could share with us on that program?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an exciting program, and not just the sidewalks. What we're looking at potentially doing is even shutting down the street at certain times, so that you could actually have, we could actually have tables that are out, and this is specifically Commissioner Stegman on Main Street. So there have been quite a bit of discussion about timeframes where we could shut down the street, allow for additional opportunities for folks to be out in the street, have the additional space for restaurants to have folks who come in and are able to sit down and eat, because that's really something. I was at the Thai Bistro right there on Main Street earlier this week, and when we went in, we knew it was going to be our last couple of days, and the folks that were there just kept going to each table saying, please, 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 please order out next week. We need the support. So you could hear a bit of the desperation in their voices as we went into another additional opportunity for limiting capacities and actually shutting some of those locations down during this time frame. So as we have that opportunity to do some of that permitting, and again, this is the innovation that we're practicing and the innovation that we're talking about right now. How do we all work together to ensure that we can help this out? So there's two components. We're doing the sidewalks for sure. And that's going to be something that's going to be open over a period of time. We're doing quite an extensive pilot program in downtown Gresham, but also throughout the community to ensure others have an opportunity and ability to do that. So some of the strip malls, and not just downtown, because many times some of our BIPOC community folks, people of color, disadvantaged individuals, don't always have their businesses in the centralized locations, because sometimes historically they're relatively expensive in comparison to what they could get in other places, similar to the food cart and food pod types of setups. So we're looking at how do we disperse this in a way that gives everybody equity in that conversation. But again, we're also looking at the possibility of expanding into the streets, over weekend evenings, things like that, to really give our folks an opportunity to survive this and then ultimately thrive post-pandemic.
That is so exciting, Mayor. I'm really thrilled. Cannot wait. I think all of our East County cities should follow suit. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds really exciting, Mayor. Just really fantastic work. Well, we have only about 6 minutes left, so I wanted to close with a question for each of our panelists. What is the best way and easiest way for, our East County members to connect with you, okay, on a regular basis? If they have an issue that comes up, it's something they want to talk with their elected leaders about, or they feel like there's a solution to, what's the best way for them to connect with each of you? And let's just start in the order in which we started. So we'll start with you, Commissioner Stegman, and we'll just go through the panel. And then
Thank you, John. I'll post my email address in the chat, but it's, wait, Becca already did it. So it's district4@multco.us. We monitor that inbox on a regular daily basis, but that is the best way to get a hold of me. We are very responsive, and we try to get back within 24 hours.
And I will just add, mine is, you will not be surprised to hear, district3@multco.us. Olivia, who is on my staff, just put that in, as well as our office phone number. that you can reach out to. But I would say that probably email during these times is best, as we're all working remotely still. So district3@multco.us, and I just encourage people to reach out.
And I have a sense that Eli is going to put mine in right there. Look at that. So rep.jeffreardon@oregonlegislature.gov, and the phone number is right there. That really is the best way to reach me. I wanted to mention a couple of things real quick. I did have a bill I wanted to mention that we're expanding the photo radar, which was a pilot project in Portland that's been far exceeded expectations at keeping people safer. And that's being expanded to where smaller communities can adopt that. So if Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale, any of those would be interested, that should be a possibility soon. And earlier on, Travis was talking about, people of color, the education system, all of that. And one thing we need to work on, and I think it's a community thing, but within our schools, we have so many students that never see a teacher that looks like them. And we have an increasing number of Black and people of color that are in our classrooms. And so one of our challenges on the legislative level is to, how do we address that? So we're working on some things, don't need to go into details here, but I think it's also, once we find those teachers, once we get them into our schools, what can we do as a broader community to make sure that they feel welcome here? And so I'm just going to throw that thought out there, no extra charge for these. So anyway, thank you again for having us here today and to be part of this great conversation.
Mayor Stovall, you can close us out this morning.
Just want to say thanks, and then to follow up on what Rep. Reardon just said in regards to education. I grew up in an all-Black neighborhood in Kansas City, Kansas, a red line community, as some of you have heard me say before, and very few of my educators, even in that community, actually looked like me. And so his reference is on point, and that's something that's a critical issue. Lastly, I didn't have anybody who could put it in the chat for me, but so I did it myself. And so it's there, mayor@GreshamOregon.gov. I know super complex, but mayor@GreshamOregon.gov. And as everybody else said, we're working remotely. And so that's one of the best ways to get a hold of me. And that's monitored actually by a number of folks so that we can be responsive to ensure that questions get answered, they don't get missed or get dropped. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Ideas, concerns, thoughts, we would love to hear them all so that we can be very inclusive as we continue to work through the pandemic. And then as we come out of the pandemic to really make our communities the best they can possibly be.
Well, that was fantastic. I just want to wrap up here by just a huge thanks again to Commissioner Lori Stegman, Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson, Representative Jeff Reardon, and Gresham Mayor Travis Stovall. We're so lucky to have each of you as leaders in our community. And one thing I always say for Oregonians, having lived in other states, we are so lucky to have such incredible access to our elected officials. All of you make yourselves available to the community on such a regular basis. Sometimes I think we take it for granted here in Oregon. So thank you for all you're doing. We're all working together for equitable and resilient recovery, and we just look forward to more partnership with each of you in the coming days, months, and years ahead.